So this is the DTT to IP panel, no silver bullets. Get you guys to quickly introduce yourselves, tell us who you are, why you're here, and our icebreaker question for this session is, if you had to survive a zombie apocalypse armed only with a kitchen utensil, what would you choose? Xavier, start from you.
All right. So my name is Xavier. I run business development at Broadpeak. We're a company specialized in video distribution. We do CDN, multicast, and we focus a lot on monetization, advertising. While I'm here, part of my role is to network, connect with people, and talk a little bit about strategy, looking ahead. So that's why I'm here. I'm based in London, not too far from here, of course. And I think last time I was in Bristol was about 10 years ago, probably trying to pitch something to you, Matt, from CDN stuff when you were at EE, so it's good to be back here.
Is yours on?
Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Click the switch.
That might be a start here. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2. Start again?
Okay, Matt?
Kitchen utensil.
Oh, yeah.
Gives me more time.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the cheese grater.
Oh, nice. Matt Stagg. Well, I've just taken on a new role with a company called Neutral Wireless. I'm looking at their strategy and partnerships for growth. They do private 5G networks for stadiums and sports broadcasters, leagues, federations. I carved the chicken with a zombie knife, so I just carry on using that. You know, I'm quite lucky in that respect.
Jeez.
Okay, I introduced myself like 10 minutes ago, so I think you remember me. I've been working in Nokia for 15 years or so, mainly on IPTV solutions with large companies in mainly Europe and South America. For the last 8 years, focus on live TV instead of a complete IPTV solution. And I guess that I would take a pan from the kitchen because I've seen many movies and the people have to use the pan with a very useful way.
Heat it up on the hob first.
No. I want it cold in the face. Yeah. It's more painful.
About this, haven't you?
Yeah.
Dish best served cold. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, I like our panels to be kind of interactive, so we're not just going to save Q&A for the end. Anyone who's got questions, at any point, just raise your hand and we'll pick you out and pass you a microphone. So here's the situation. So in 2034, broadcast licenses for Freeview, the UK's DTT platform, are going to expire. So there's no full switch off confirmed yet by the government, we know that. But it is expected that 2035 will mark the start of a phased switch out, with the possibility of a reduction to a core DTT service. So the first question is a very simple one. Do you believe this timeline is too aggressive and therefore we need more time? Or is that perfectly achievable, do you think? Xavier, from you.
Okay, so this is a great question to start, right? You're thinking 10 years ahead, and we already see a lot of streaming, we already see a lot of households that are pure IP, so basically people who don't have an antenna on their roofs. I think we think about, 30% of the UK already doesn't have an antenna on their roofs, so it's starting. 10 years I think gives us enough time to be able to do that. We start to see some very high peaks of traffic already in the UK. We saw, I think, the football with Prime Video over the last couple of years that has been very popular, so this has proven that it is possible. There are a few things lacking still. I think penetration of broadband, being able to get broadband into every household, to be able to move everybody to IP, I think that's one of the challenges. When it comes to the timing, I think you mentioned the services might be reduced to a smaller set of services. I would argue that this is probably a bad idea. We either keep it like it is or we kill it off completely. There's no point on having just a handful of channels on DTT. We have to make, I think, the proposition interesting, and a handful of channels are probably not going to cut it. And I think having a sort of end date of 20, and we don't know yet if it's 32, 33, 34, 35, but it's about 10 years away. having an end date would also give us enough time to plan backwards, where we start to see broadcasters like Channel 4, ITV talking about digital first. That's what they mean. They mean focusing on streaming, being able to scale their streaming operation, make more money with streaming. So it's already something that they're planning for, basically.
So I think the key point with all of this is, it's not, we haven't got 10 years. We're just having a chat about it. Do you know what I mean? So it's not even starting. People are discussing it. I think there's a couple of things here. The interesting point of keeping a few channels on is the infrastructure around, towers, everything in terms of what you've got around. As you start, you're saying to a company, okay, well, we'll keep BBC One on and we'll move everything else off. Well, hold on. They're still paying for all that infrastructure, and now they're paying for CDN costs and everything else. And the third thing is the people, and this was the same with the DTT, the digital switchover, the people that lose out are the people that don't understand as such. And also, we have to have how's the license fee going to work for that? Is the license fee going to be able to subsidise a basic broadband connection enough to receive one channel at a time? Well, how's that going to work commercially and regulatory? So I think the technical pieces we've got. You could quite easily do it. It's a scaling thing.
The technical is easy, right? We know what
yeah.
networks
Always. But
society is interested.
Yeah, are we going to say, there's a couple of interesting pieces there where the government want to give ubiquitous broadband so that people can access government services and stuff. So do we say some way funded by, we have a minimum broadband speed, but I think, it's not a technical problem.
Do you think it could be achievable now from a technical perspective? I think the networks are ready now.
I think we need more, and this is Xavier's piece, we need more around the multicast in terms of, in the core to be able to take that hit.
I think I kind of agree with both of you. From the technical point of view, I think that there's no problem. We already have the tools that we need to fix it. The problem is the infrastructure. You cannot leave behind anyone, so everyone has to have a reliable broadband at home, or at least in the pocket. And that's not the point right now. So it's not a problem of technology, it's a problem of investment, of new access.
Who's going to pay for it?
Yeah, well, we will talk about that later, I think. And the question is, when is going to start that universal broadband access to fix this as soon as possible?
Yeah. Well, as Xavier has already stolen one of my questions, we might as well answer it. Who is going to pay for it? I have a feeling the ISPs and broadcasters are going to disagree with some of what you've already said, but I like the confidence. But yeah, who is going to pay for it?
So I think you need to look at the options, right? The cost of doing nothing is very high. If you have to build more network infrastructure, if you just throw network capacity to that, that's very expensive, especially for broadband providers who are not going to be making more money if you start using the broadband more. The way we buy broadband in this country is unlimited, right? So you buy the pipe, and whether you use it 10% or 100%, you pay the same amount of money. So if we start to push a lot more traffic through the network, we're not ready to be paying more as end users, right? So we're going to have to be thinking about, I think, more collaborations between the content providers, between the TV channels, and the broadband infrastructure provider to be able to have them somehow involved in the value chain. Otherwise, we're going to be asking them to build bigger networks, potentially also delivering the traffic from further away from where you are, and typically with video, you always want to be close to the consumption. So I think it's going to have to be closer between the telcos and the content providers. And this is where a piece like BT's project with multicast, where they basically are building a multicast distribution network in the network to work with all the TV channels, that becomes an interesting way of solving it, right? Flattening the peaks of traffic, being able to deliver the good quality of experience that we all expecting when we watch TV. I think we can put up with some bad experience on the phone or tablets, but with TV, I think you said it earlier, you want very low latency, you want high resiliency, high reliability. This is where, there's going to be more emphasis on the telco network.
Now, you're a telco man. The telcos are not going to want to pay very much.
Absolutely. And when you start to look at it turn off, potential that HD goes, there's something else, and that's not necessarily a decision for the broadcaster or the consumer. The broadband provider says we can't do it, and we always look at a minimum broadband. But what about people who've got 5 TVs in their house? And the other piece is, if you're changing channels, it's shit. People who only have DTT or are changing channels and they change, to go into another app or something like that. But I think there's an interesting piece where it's moving in that direction anyway. And I think if we don't do anything, then DTT is going to have a problem commercially, because you've got everybody wants, BBC Three went online direct to consumer, streaming. So more and more people want to do this because they have better access, they can reach more people, they can reach more devices. So at some point, someone's left with their one channel on DTT, but paying for the muxes anyway. So the problems that we're trying to solve because it's being switched off are actually the same problems that are coming along anyway. So you're going to have to look at it, but no one knows where the money is anyway, in terms of, the only thing people know is they pay a license fee they don't want to do, and they also have Netflix and Paramount and stuff like that. Is there an opportunity to have a free view style, but then you're relying on all the public service broadcasters? Freeview was an absolute nightmare. Same with UView. So how do we look at this? Are we asking people in the broadcast to start to work together? Well, then if we're asking that, then we're not making 2035, because you just look at how long UView came.
Yeah. So this is where we're heading, right? We're freely bid by UView. This is very much the direction we're taking. And I don't know if you had the chance to try the new 3D boxes. There's that one called Clio that came out recently. It's not fully baked yet, I would say. It's out, but I think it will improve over time, like Preview did over the years. But I think it's addressing an important aspect, which is the experience. You mentioned being able to zap channel today. If you want to move from BBC One to ITV on IP, it's a different app, it's a different context. It's not an easy experience. So at least the 3D approach has the benefit to recreate the traditional experience, plus and minus on the remote control, something that everybody can use. And I think that's, again, an important aspect, not very technical, but from society. And when you talk to DCMS, it's thinking about the dates and how to do it. That's an important aspect of it, because at the end, we're going to have to bring people with us, all the audience in this transition.
Roberto, Nokia is paying for the bar, but who is paying for the DTT switcher?
Well, I think that I don't have the numbers, but my feeling is that in the long term, is going to be, let's say, paid by himself, because IPTV at the end is going to be cheaper than DTT. So if whoever pay now for the transition looks 20 years in the future, maybe it's saving money. Just make the numbers, check if multicast is cheaper than maintaining very big towers with a lot of maintenance and a lot of electricity consumption. Maybe the money is already there, but we don't see it. So I think that the money is there, but everyone wants someone to put the money right now on top of the table, but they think that the money is already there. They just have to think about it in the future.
To your point, there is money in distribution today, right? Look how much Akiba charges for distributing the live channels. It's hundreds of millions altogether, right?
Yeah.
So 100 millions a year buy you a lot of CDN, right? I would happily, build you a CDN for 10% of that. So money is there, you're right? And I think there is, probably a transition that's going to have to happen, and you know, the state of what's happening to Arqiva is interesting. I mean, if you saw the recent news, one of the investors sold quite a bit of their shares of Arqiva, and you know, the company is massively undervalued now. It was still worth, I think, $1 billion sort of 2-3 years ago, when denying 50% of the shares. If you look at the latest sellout, it's like a 90% reduction of the value, right? So it's not just. We could talk about that, but you know, it's. I think it's interesting. It also puts, you know, the focus, and you know, people start to know that this model will disappear, right? Eventually, not now, but you know, because Arqiva will live for another 10 years for sure. But this way of delivering will, at the end, disappear. Broadcast will disappear.
Keith, do you have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
It's difficult to know sometimes, isn't it? It could just be an outbreak.
For the security of the internet, at the moment, are you sure that the quality of the security can resist the attack from third party or third country? Okay. The broadcasting is fatal to the whole country and public information. So someone can be man in the middle, can replace a lot of things. At the moment, security, for example, you look at the AWS or Cloudflare or whoever, recently they went down completely because their defense software become attacker. Okay, so how that going to be played out? Security is one thing. Second thing is that have anyone done any analysis?
So maybe we do one question at a time.
Yeah. I just asked the question. You can think about which one you want to answer. Second thing is that the scalability and the resilience. Has anyone done any analysis? Okay, we've done some analysis to come up with very bad result.
So let's talk about security a little bit. I think that's a very good point. We started to see TV channels leaving broadcast in Europe. Right? So Canal Plus left the French terrestrial from TDF. Tele2 in Sweden left Terracom. They're not using that broadcast network anymore. They're pure IP now. And then people start asking questions, how long are we going to keep this network? Because if you were to build networks from scratch, there's no way you will build a broadcast network and an IP network. So over time, it will make sense to switch out the broadcast network. The argument in Sweden is very much what you described. This is sovereign distribution. This is something that can be trusted. This is something that, at the end, guarantees a certain quality, a certain level of content being delivered. And this is super interesting, especially in Sweden, because there's a lot of IPTV, illegal IPTV boxes being used. I think it's about 10% of households have, you know, an illegal IPTV box, so they watch IP content through a pirated service, right? And I think on average, it's 30% of the household are using pirated content. This starts to ask the question: if someone is pirating your service, could they also pirate the content inside? Could you start having fake news being broadcasted to 10% of the population? And can you trust an IP as much as you can trust broadcast? Those are good questions.
So what's the answer?
The answer is being very thorough, is fighting piracy. The answer is, you know, when you work with IT.
4 times.
It's, you know, going through...
Oh, then just go it. I am from the West Country, you can see there.
But yeah, it's a thorough approach, right? When you work with the BT, you have to, you know, follow the Telecoms Act now. It's, you know, something, you know, a lot tighter than it used to be. So, yeah, regulations and, you know, following the rules, I guess.
Funny thing is, I've never heard Keith talk about piracy before.
There's a thing today. I need a selfie today. You know, clearly, you know, we're talking more and more about piracy. I need a selfie. Clearly, this is going online.
Would anyone else like to address Keith's question?
It's a bit too technical for me, to be honest. But there are ways already that are being looked at, especially around sport and pirating sport. I think it's, you know, if you have a look at people who buy dodgy boxes, a lot of it is paid content. Well, actually, if you look at DTT switch off, that's all currently in the UK, that's all license fee money. So if I had to where does that license fee money go? Well, obviously they're going to have to start to look at the security question. But do we just say, okay, well, now you pay, and the license fee is another complete different thing. But if it was happened today, do you say, well, that goes in to fund infrastructure? But I can't work out at the moment, apart from CDN companies, who's going to make money from it, or even, even be even in terms of it, because all we talk about is every sort part of it, is looking really expensive. There's lobbying, there's slowing it down. We got 2 elections before the switch off. So, it depends on DCMS and where they're at. Other things come up, and I can see it being, the can being kicked down the road, to be honest. Again, it goes back to not being a technical piece. I think there's going to be just a lot of politics involved, especially around who pays for what, when we don't even currently understand the flow of money from, that whole piece of, it's gone back again and again, is should Google or Netflix give money to the broadband providers because they're using their, and it's, well, should they then pay for the data center that they put the content in? We're massively multiplying that, but with a huge number of different companies all coming up with the same problem at the same time when it hasn't been solved for anyone else.
So add to that, I think using the spectrum, I think there's an element, you talk about the politics and government, I think the spectrum, the TV spectrum will be super useful for other applications, right? It's a spectrum that travels really well in terms of propagation. So will it be 6G, 7G? Will it be used for military? There's a chance that the government also wants to sell the spectrum as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Create, I think, urgency.
It's another place to get the money for the transition.
Yeah. To push universal broadband to make it possible.
Yeah, no, that's a...
Yeah.
Could I comment that?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Because actually I have more, but just on that one, because I actually worked at Tele2, we just shut down the, a while back I was responsible for all the fixed operations into the Tour de Nordics. And we did the math on shutting down DTT. If you check the value being created, if you have an interactive use, on all interactive services like internet on the spectrum, back in 2014, the value being generated on that versus DTT was 50 times. So that's the case. The case is from a society perspective, you enable, in 2014, I would bet it's more today, 50 times the value. When we try to debate with the regulators why they should shut down. Now it happened anyhow. But, so yeah.
Thanks, man. Was there a question?
There was a question, there was a comment.
This is a statement.
And I think when it comes to value, TV has a value for society, right? A lot of people are isolated, a lot of people are watching TV for presence in the home. But these people are not necessarily valuable, to your point, to the TV channels. It may not be the people that are being targeted with ads, right? And they may not have the most buying power. So what we're getting into here with the transition as well is, are we going to break the value of TV for certain individuals? Because as a TV channel, there's a point where, like I said, I'm not going to be spending money on traditional broadcast. I'm going to be focusing more on IP, paying CDN, being able to do targeted advertising, and my services might not be available to everyone. That may be relying more on my services, where my TV has value to them. So, we may be creating, I think, a shift in between the two values. Right? You see what I mean? I think it's important. Right? Society thinking again. Right?
Yeah, got a question down the front?
It might be a controversial question with telcos in the room, but given the worrying about who's going to pay for it, do you think there's an argument that if the government put together the billions it spends already on all of its independent private networks, put that into one place, create an ubiquitous, almost a nationalised, basic minimum viable broadband service that everyone gets, and then on top of that, broadcasters and others can pay and consumers can pay for increased services, so the government guarantees a basic minimum level of broadband.
For me, it's okay. I'm not paying. I'm not living here. So I think this the simple and quickest solution that provide from the government stable and basic internet access for everyone. From there, whoever wants to make business, just pay more.
I'd answer that question as if we were in Spain talking about.
Well, then I'm moving to another country. Now, in Spain, I think we are not moving to IP yet, but because we moved to DTT like 5 years ago, so it's not something very old. But most of the people has already IPTV at home. Only the elder people are still using just DTT, and in those cases, I think we are moving to satellite probably because the elder people in Spain live in the countryside, and the countryside is very spare, and it's almost empty, the country in Spain, so probably they are going to move to satellite and IPTV from there.
So yeah, now you're talking again about the government-funded piece. A minimal. What do you say? Everyone's allowed to. I'm just thinking everyone's allowed to have one channel on in the house to meet that minimum that everybody can watch it. But I think the other piece, everyone talks about DTT being turned off, but if people are going to move their models towards IP only, well then what about the satellite that relies on all of those channels, all of those broadcasting capabilities that they're supplied to them, and cable? So actually the impact of the problem isn't just someone who watches it through their aerial. It's going to have an impact, a ripple effect throughout the broadcast industry.
Xavier, do you want to answer that question, or should we jump to Paul?
Maybe just a small point. It's happening already, right? Moving everything to IP on cable networks. If you look at the latest Vision box, it's no more RF being delivered, it's pure IP, right? So it's, the wheels are in motion, and yes, there will be interesting, I think, aspects when it comes to, other broadcast technology, but it is already happening.
But it goes back to the switching and stuff like that, because cable and satellite still have the immediate switching over, as opposed to switching the system over. That was just my thought. Paul.
Yeah, I was going to ask about satellite, so it's good that it's come up. So last time I heard that these satellites that the UK uses go end of life, end of 2029, and that SES might be able to stretch them a year or two more than that, but there is, from what I've heard, no current plan to. They are being very coy about it, but the time that they have, the window that they have to announce replacement satellites is rapidly disappearing. So at the moment, it looks very much like no one's funding them and there won't be any. So that actually, when we talk about 2035 for terrestrial, actually, are we talking about 2030 or 2032? Because we've still got 6-7 million households watching DSAT. So actually, that's actually suddenly a much tighter timescale and potentially a bigger challenge. I don't know. The question is, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, yeah, that was a good turnaround.
So I think if you look at satellite, Sky has been doing a lot already, right? Sky Glass, Sky Puck, this idea of having, again, very simple set-top box, streaming only, pure IP, so they're making steps in the right direction, but will they have the capacity to switch millions of subscribers overnight from satellite to IP? No. I don't think so, right? So that's a problem.
They're approximately 20 years old.
Great.
Anyone else? All good? Okay. I am a little bit surprised about how kind of confident you guys are about the current state of the UK network infrastructure, considering I thought you'd all be coming here with something to sell. But is there an argument that whatever we discuss, the technology today, whatever we're talking about, in 10 years' time, 9 years' time, is going to be redundant anyway? The pace of technology, how it's changing, is going to be obsolete by the time that full IP switchover happens. Is there a case for that?
It's just YouTube.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So I don't think it'll be obsolete, right? I think we'll rely on similar technologies. It might not be called HLS and Dash anymore, but the principles are here. I think what is interesting is the pace of innovation and how denser the solutions are now, right? We were talking earlier, because of Nick, about when I started, we were talking about megabits per second. We had streaming servers that were so advanced, they could stream 300 megabits per second. And we would daisy chain them and try and fill a gigabit per second, right? That was advanced technology. So you needed 3 servers sort of 20 years ago to fill 1 gigabit per second. Now a single server will do a terabit per second, right? So you do 1,000 gigabits per server out of a single box. So, you know, at this pace, you know, it's becoming a lot cheaper to deliver content. Networks are becoming more efficient as well, and I think in 10 years' time we will see again more economies of scale.
I think there's an interesting point that we haven't brought up, and I don't hear it brought up that often, is there's another factor into that is behavioural change in terms of what people watch, how they watch it. So actually, you know, linear TV is dropping off anyway, so you start to look at that. The easiest thing to do would to just be let it die by osmosis, but obviously there's money in that, because like you said, it would go. You know, as we've got the older demographic, I don't know how to say this, they won't be here in 10 years. And then I include myself, maybe not. I'm making it as I work from.
But you down here, some argue there will be fewer than 1 million broadcast-only homes by 2030.
Well, there we go, and then you've got all of the Gen Z coming up with their own behaviours of how they watch it. Then you've got the next generation coming in; they're not going to be doing it at all. So it's dying off, and then you've got companies who already in their strategy want to move it across. I think the easiest thing, if you can't, is just do nothing. Lay up and you can tell. Yeah, you can tell I'm not looking for a job anymore, can't you?
Well, I'm not sure what to say about that, but I think that it's not going to be very late in 10 years, the technology that we are deploying right now, because I've been working with live TV for 15 years, and the bandwidth that each channel uses has not increased. The HD is still the same bandwidth, Ultra HD is still the same bandwidth, maybe the next jump is 8K, but it's not going to be like a new order of magnitude of bandwidth. The infrastructure is measured by the number of clients, not by the content. The content is almost quite stable. Number of channels and number of people that is watching the channel, and that is just put in another server. So it's not going to be all hardware in 10 years, at least for video, for live video. Other kind of contents, maybe we have, if we are talking about virtual reality or that kind of stuff, maybe we have to improve the hardware, but for live video, 4K, 8K, I think we are safe for 10 years at least.
It depends what you call live, I think, right? Because I think we see linear dying, right? Mm-hmm. Traditional TV channels, and to your point, fewer of the younger generation are watching linear, they're watching more on demand, but I think live will remain, and live will be big. We still will have football games and F1 and whatever you need to, big spikes of traffic that will have to be delivered by the network. So I think live is the challenge, because you need to have enough capacity in your network for this, you know, once in a year, once every 4 year event. And if you don't have it, then you run into issues of quality, and then you are impacting the quality of experience, and customers are getting disappointed. So, and
that's why we have to have some kind of multicast solution. Just comes back to you know, we suffered the same problems with 4G. If you can make sport work, everything else works. But you can't over provision your systems for a Saturday afternoon. So you know, that's a genuine technical problem to overcome, because what you're saying is, okay, everybody has to have enough in case they all want to watch football at 4K, and in the core of the networks, and having that elasticity it doesn't work like cloud computing. You know, that's great. You can build an elasticity model, but not with fiber.
Not with video delivery, right? It doesn't work like this. That's
No,
the issue.
of course not.
You can't serve millions of streams from far away in the network. It doesn't work.
Do you genuinely think there is a future for multicast in 10 years' time? Are we just recycling old technology for the sake of nostalgia?
Multicast is a great technology, right? The transport of multicast works really well. I think the issue we had with multicast, we used to transport legacy formats, right? So transport stream secured with conditional access that would have to go to a set-top box, and that's very limited. I think when you start transporting ABR over multicast, then you can do one second. Then you get the benefits of all the streaming. You get your targeted advertising. You get your all the nice analytics and all that. And I think that's where multicast is a good transition technology for the spikes to avoid massive overinvestment in the network. Will we need it in 10 years' time? I don't know. We'll see. But we need it now. We see a lot of people deploying it. BT being one of them. Claro. We see Telefonica. We see Orange. There's a lot of big companies deploying it now.
Until you press pause, and then it all starts again.
So it's not pure multicast, that's a good point. There's always some minicast involved. Right?
Is that why Broadpeak has smashed its revenue projections by 50%?
And the second, that's 70%.
It's a hybrid world. Paul.
Go on. So we hear a lot about these big sporting events, but I remember being at that Scotty event a few months ago when the ISP people in the room were actually saying their biggest traffic peaks are actually from game downloads, not from TV events. And then I think also with that, if everybody's watching the football, they're not watching YouTube or Netflix. So there's, we think about these big sporting events, and yes, they are big simultaneous viewing events, but nevertheless, that means there will be less traffic elsewhere. And it also means that the infrastructure maybe will be there for other reasons anyway, and it will still have to be there. So yeah, I think your framing of multicast as a transitional technology is the right framing. But I mean, what do you think about the idea that? And I know we had a lot of discussion about this. The idea that if people are watching a sporting event, they're not watching Netflix, they're not watching YouTube. So actually, that balances out the traffic a bit. Ross, what's your take on that?
I think there's some of that. What is interesting is some networks have decided to go full unicast. Right? You look at most of the large tier 1 in the US, Charter, Comcast, all those guys went full unicast. And that's great.
IPL.
Yeah, and that's great until they run into capacity issues, because multicast basically goes deeper than your unicast in terms of distribution. It can be more efficient. So we start to see some questions around that. Is it really the right approach? Should we be doing something more efficient, especially when it comes to live, when you may have a football game for 2 hours? Should you have servers doing nothing for most of the week and only use for 2 hours? So, I think the pendulum is swinging. Will multicast be, the right technology for everyone tomorrow? Clearly not. You can't throw money at the issue and build bigger networks. Absolutely. Will all your capacity be used all the time? Clearly not. Right. So it's also a choice depending on the business and how your customers are using the network.
And also, it's as opposed to watching something else. It doesn't necessarily flow that way because it's appointment to view. So people who wouldn't necessarily have been watching something at, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I know we have a block out for Premier League, but you can put it if it was a World Cup, have actually gone to watch that. So whereas they might have been out, and that's the thing with the draw of, and we are talking really. If we're talking about DTT switchover, we're really only talking it's World Cup, Olympics, because all the rights are going across to the streamers that are already streaming. So it's an interesting way.
Well, I'm sorry, but I cannot agree with you. I think that multicast is going to be with us for a long time. It has been with us for 20, 30 years. And the thing is that I do not understand why people stop using multicast for live content, because in my opinion it's the best option. I don't know why people is try to hit nails with a screwdriver. They are using TCP for life, but it makes no sense. And multicast has been there all the time. In the next 5 years, 10 years, will be there. The live content is going to still there. And actually, we have a sport event once a month, and now we have once every 2 days. And multicast, the scalability of multicast is way better than any farm of TCP. So
I wasn't planning this, but I end up slagging multicast. Here we go.
It's my personal experience. I've been working with multicast many years, and
I don't think it's for everyone, right? Again,
probably has to evolve.
Yeah, and
but
if you do mobile
it's a very good
networks,
solution,
you know,
actually.
Mobile networks and multicast, I don't believe in it. We've seen it for many years. You know,
No.
MBMS, CMBMS, 5G broadcast.
Never.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Your
Right?
multicast technology is about approximately 15 years behind.
Okay, you can teach me later.
I think I should open that.
But you know what is
You provide
interesting?
the training.
Very few. If you look on mobile, very few operators have deployed it. Telstra and Reliance Jio are the only two I can think of. Beyond that, this is never going to work, right? So for mobile, I think it's always going to be limited. Some networks don't lend themselves very well to multicast. If you have very traditional broadband access with PPP, for example, you create tunnels on the way, so multicast is not going to give you anything. The argument I would make is if you have an IPTV deployment today, if you are using multicast, it would be frankly stupid not to think about evolving that multicast distribution to do streaming, because you have the complexity already under control, you have the engineering team capable of maintaining a multicast network, and that's fine. If you switch it off, if you decide to put everything over unicast, then I think going back and engineer multicast later on into a pure unicast network, that might be a bit too high, right? So I think the step back might be
Okay, we got time for maybe one or two audience questions. Anyone else? If not, we'll wrap up. Okay. Yes.
Just to go back onto the subject, which is DTT to IP transition, I think actually Matt made the most important point, and my question is more to the rest of the audience. As a quick straw poll, who thinks that we should just do nothing and just let it die? Because that's what I think.
Oh, yes. And how much is that, IO? £5 each?
Thanks. Sorry.
Thanks for that. Any other thoughts?
So I would argue that TV channels might just leave. They might just say, look, it's not for me anymore, because my revenues on traditional broadcast we've had, they're going down, right? Over the years, smaller audiences and all that, my revenues are going down. My revenues on digital are going up, so all the streaming, ITVX and all that's going up. And there's a point where I paid a lot of money for broadcast distribution, I paid a lot of money for CDN, there's one that's dying, one story.
Yeah.
Where am I going to bet, right? I'm going to bet clearly on the CDN.
Or you end up being the only person paying for the whole infrastructure for the UK, for your one channel, yeah.
The BBC probably will.
Well, then we pay.
That's what you pay.
All right, round of applause for our panelists, please.
Oh, yes.